The plane ascended into the night, and as I stared out the window, I watched the familiar skyline of Denver shrink until it was nothing more than a scattering of faint lights in the distance. Relief washed over me, mingled with an overwhelming sense of finality. I was leaving it all behind. My father, the city that had caged me, the life I had always known. I would never have to go back. It was all so sudden. But I was free. The weight of the day pressed down on me, though, making my eyelids heavy. Part of me wanted to stay awake, to process everything, the hasty marriage, the whirlwind of emotions, the thought of a new beginning in Velmorne, but exhaustion won. As the plane climbed higher, I drifted off, lulled by the gentle hum of the engines. When I opened my eyes, it felt as though mere seconds had passed. The cabin was bathed in the faint golden light of lamps, and the sky outside the window was an inky black. Something warm and solid was pressed against me, and instinctively, I leaned into it, seeking more of the comforting heat. Then realization hit me like a cold slap. I froze, blinking fully awake, and my heart jumped when I realized I had been leaning against Kai. Not only that, I had been trying to cuddle against him in my half-asleep state. Horrified, I quickly pulled away, my cheeks blazing with embarrassment. I glanced at him, praying he had been asleep, but no such luck. Kai was very much awake, a laptop open on the table in front of him, a file in his hands. He looked down at me, an amused glint in his dark eyes, as though he'd been waiting for me to notice. That was when I saw it. The name Benny Santos glared at me from the screen, embedded in a document filled with paragraphs of text. A sickening sensation curled in my stomach. Kai must have sensed my shift in mood because he turned his head to the screen and then back to me, his dark gaze meeting mine. "Tell me about him," he said, his voice quiet but firm. "Why does your father lick his boots so much?" I swallowed, forcing down the unease that settled in my chest. "Benny's been after me since I was 16, I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "He saw me once at a party in Castra Manor and decided he wanted me. He's older than me by at least 40 years. Kai's expression darkened, his grip tightening slightly on the edge of his laptop. I exhaled slowly, steeling myself before continuing. "When I turned 18, my father started looking for suitors. Benny was the first one to make an offer. He was relentless, always hovering, always watching. My hands curled into fists in my lap. And whenever he got the chance, he would touch me, grope me. My stomach twisted at the memories, and I looked away, unable to meet Kai's gaze. A long beat of silence passed between us before I found the courage to ask, "Why are you looking into him?" Kai didn't answer right away. Instead, he reached forward, shut his laptop, and leaned back in his seat. "I have my own reasons," was all he said, his tone unreadable. I frowned, but didn't push. I wasn't sure I wanted to know what those reasons were. The silence stretched between us, thick with unsaid words, until Kai shifted beside me. His fingers brushed against my temple, tucking a stray strand of hair behind my ear. The gesture was so intimate, so unexpected, that I froze completely. "Why do you always have your hair up?" he asked, his voice low and curious. I froze for a moment, unsure if I should answer. The weight of the story pressed against my chest, the words clawing to stay buried. No one knew the truth, not the full truth. But there was something about the way Kai looked at me, his dark eyes steady and unyielding, that made me falter. He was waiting, patient but firm, like he wouldn't let me hide behind my silence. Kai's question lingered in the air, heavier than it should have been. Taking a deep breath, I shifted in my seat, my fingers twisting nervously in my lap. "There's something a lot of people don't know about the time I was abducted," I began, my voice quieter than I intended. His focus sharpened, and I felt the air between us tighten. "My memories of those 3 days," I said, swallowing hard, "they come and go in blurs. I don't remember everything. But when they finally dropped me off at Castra Manor, my voice wavered, and I clenched my fists to keep it steady. I wasn't dropped at the front gate like my father told the world." Kai's jaw tightened, but he didn't interrupt. "What no one knows, what I've never told anyone, is that the guards found me in a bush about half a mile from the house. I was naked, shivering and wrapped in burlap bags. And the worst thing was that they had cut off all my hair. The words came out in a rush, as though saying them faster would make them hurt less. Not just cut it, but hacked it off. My throat burned, and my vision blurred with unshed tears. I loved my hair, I continued, my voice trembling but angry now. I was so proud of it. It was mine. And my breath hitched, and I shook my head, unable to finish the sentence. I wiped at my eyes quickly, frustrated with myself for crying. After that, I couldn't let it down anymore. It felt wrong. It made me feel ashamed. My voice cracked, but I forced the last words out. So, I keep it up. Always. When I finally dared to look at Kai, his expression took my breath away. His face was carved from stone, his lips pressed into a thin line, but it was his eyes that made my chest tighten. They burned with a quiet, deadly rage, dark and stormy and sharp enough to cut. He tossed the file he'd been holding onto the table in front of him, the movement deliberate. Then, without a word, he reached for my hand. His touch was gentle, but there was no mistaking the command in his voice when he said, "Come here." I hesitated, but his grip was steady, unyielding. Slowly, I shifted toward him, and before I could think twice, he pulled me into his lap. My heart pounded as I straddled him, my legs on either side of his hips, my hands instinctively resting against his chest for balance. His frame was broad and solid beneath me, making me feel small and fragile in a way I wasn't used to. "May I?" he asked, his voice softer now, his hand lifting toward my hair. I hesitated, my stomach twisting with nerves. It had been 2 years since anyone had seen my hair down, but something about the way he looked at me, so steady, so certain, made me nod, even as my breath hitched. I stayed still, my heart pounding in my chest, as he reached for the pins holding my hair in its usual knot. His fingers brushed against my scalp as he worked, careful but deliberate, and a shiver ran down my spine. When the last pin came free, my hair tumbled down, spilling over my shoulders and down my back. I sucked in a short breath, instinctively reaching up to touch it, but Kai caught my hand and gently guided it back to his chest. "Let me," he said, his voice low and intimate. He gathered my hair in his hands, twisting it carefully to the sides so it fell down my chest. The weight of it against my skin felt strange, foreign, but the way Kai looked at me made the moment feel different. His eyes softened, the rage in them replaced by something I couldn't quite name. "It suits you," he murmured, his fingers brushing against a strand. For the first time in years, I didn't feel the urge to pull it back up. I didn't feel the weight of shame or the need to hide. All I felt was the warmth of his touch, the quiet strength in his presence, and the strange, tentative hope that maybe, just maybe, I could begin to let go.